In a small town in Spain, many years ago, there was a woman named Rosa who lived in a cottage. She has 4 children from her husband, 2 boys and 2 girls. The name of his eldest son Francisco, then Javier, then Maria, and finally Lucia. Everyone knows that Rosa was a good woman, but after the death of her husband, she went crazy. Little by little, he mistreated his son. His youngest son and daughter were scared. At the slightest mistake he would throw a tantrum and beat them hard, and the sound of their screams filled the hut. The neighbors knew that Rosa was a terrible mother, but they had no way of knowing how badly she treated her children. One night, the weather forecast was on the radio, which said they predicted there would be heavy snow and a storm to come. It was a very cold night, and Rosa told her children to get an axe from the shed because they were going to the woods to look for firewood. The children knew their mother would be angry if they didn't comply. For a few minutes they roamed the forest with flashlights, axes, and bags. They also brought rotten meat with them, in case of wild animals. While they were in the forest, Rosa called Francisco. "Francis, try this way," called Rosa. Without further ado, he picked up his bag and followed his mother. When they were away from the rest of his children, he turned around and said, "Francisco, open your bag and hold your bag in both hands and stand still." He immediately put his bag and his mother walked behind him. "I hope you understand what I'm about to do," said Rosa. "Your father is the only person working in our family. Without his income, we can't do anything. In our home, there are too many people to feed and I'm starving. Sorry, don't blame me." At that instant, he took out an axe and directly aimed it at his son's head. The slash on his son's neck was a perfect fit, and his head fell on the bag he was holding. His body fell in a pile of snow, still holding the bag. The mother cleaned the blood on her hands with snow and then headed for her other children. "Francis was eaten by a bear," he said. "He's not safe. We better go home." The poor children could not do anything. They cried all the way home, crying over the loss of their eldest brother. While their children were upstairs washing up, Rosa called Javier to help her in the kitchen. Javier was an obedient child. He came down the stairs as fast as he could. "Make me a cup of tea," tell Rosa. When the tea was ready, he said, "Bring me the bottle on top of the cupboard." Javier brought the bottle. Rosa opened the bottle and poured the contents into the teacup and told Javier to drink it. Javier didn't suspect anything and drank it down in one gulp. He did not know that the tea had been poisoned by his mother. Minutes later, Javier was immediately paralyzed and tried to climb up the stairs where his brother was. Foam was coming out of his mouth and he immediately rolled onto the floor. Lucia came down from upstairs and started crying. "Mother! Mother! Javi's heart is having a heart attack." Rosa calmly went up the stairs and saw Javi dying and unconscious on the floor of his room. Lucia was crying beside Javi. Rosa kicks him and says Javi is dead. That night, Lucia and Maria slept crying. The next morning, Rosa went to Maria's room and woke her up. "No need to get up today," he said in a whisper. "You don't have to do homework today. Can you hear me, honey?" Maria nodded, then Rosa sat on the corner of her bed and started singing her a lullaby. The song made Maria feel like a baby. The girl welcomed her mother's tenderness and began to close her eyes. Suddenly, Rosa took a knife from her sleeve and before Maria knew what was happening, she thrust it into Maria's chest, stabbing it in the heart. Maria immediately died. A few hours later, Lucia walked into Maria's room and she was greeted with a horrific sight. Mary's bed was filled with blood and there was Mary's body on it. Frightened, Lucia went downstairs. "Mother! Mother!" he shouted. "A killer broke into our house and killed Maria in her sleep." "I have to confess something," said Rosa, calmly. "I was the one who killed your brothers. I did all that. I beheaded Francisco. I poisoned Javier. I stabbed Maria in the heart with a knife and now, I will slowly strangle you, So you suffer more than your brothers. I hate you, Bug. No, mother. Lucia was crying. Do not do it. But the crazy mother didn't listen, and moments later Lucia was lying dead on the floor. No one knows what happened to Rosa. Some say he went to the forest and died there, or he went to another town and changed his name. No one has ever found it. That said, to this day, the house they live in still exists and is inhabited by the ghosts who were killed there. And local people say, if you go into the forest and call the name Francisco 5 times, a headless ghost will come behind you and slash your head with an axe.